I'm here with music historian, writer, Tony DaDome. I've been following your takes for a minute, and I just now found out, that you're a writer. I was reading, before the interview, some of the articles you've written on your website, TonyDaDome.com, and I'm
Hmm.
really impressed. I was reading the one about Shaka Khan
Okay.
when you saw her in North Carolina perform, and that was an amazing article. And then I just
Thanks.
started. You're a really great writer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually just started back sharing those this past weekend. So I used to have a lot of articles on intothedome.com, a website I started back in 2017. And after a couple of years, I was like, work and other obligations. Stopped writing so much, but a few people was hitting me like, man, we missed some of your old joints, man. Y'all to repost and share them again. So, the platform grew some more. So I like this is a perfect time to go ahead and start back sharing those, man. So I probably have 100 more to go that I have saved up.
Yeah, I've been following you for a long time. It has to be like about 8 years or so, like listening to like your hip hop takes. And I love like your takes. I feel like, you were one of the most important voices in the culture
I
of hip
appreciate
hop
that, man.
because you genuinely care about music, you care about hip hop. And I see that conviction in the tweets. You I know, everybody doesn't agree with some of the takes, and
It's
I
fine.
think, and even myself, but I feel like we can respectfully disagree on things.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, especially on social media, they kind of take it too far sometimes about people's opinions. But one of the things I found interesting that you say everything's not subjective, and I kind of agree with that to a point.
It's not. Well, so I'm gonna give you a quick example. First thing first is I never asked anyone to agree. Most stuff, and I kind of made one little thing kind of popular on Twitter to me. I always say to me, and people see that because it alleviates some discourse that's kind of unnecessary. But one thing is this: one excuse people say is, "Oh man, all music is subjective." No, 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 no. That's not quite true.
Right.
And I give different examples like, okay, well, Young MC can't rap better than Rakim. Okay, that's not subjective.
Yeah, for
Okay,
sure. Yeah.
it's not. Special Ed is good, but he's not Cool G rap. You know what I'm saying? So certain things, are not. There are facts in music. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's okay, you say this album bombed, but it sold 3 million. How did it bomb? You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
this album went 500,000 the first week, but you said it flopped. So there are certain things in music that is not opinion based. There are facts in just like historical facts in hip hop, right? Like when, for example, Run DMC did Raising Hell, right, and it opened up the door for hip hop to be what it is right now. It started to go global after Raising Hell. These are facts.
Sure.
Anyone can go do the research on that, and you'll see when they did walk this way and my Adidas and things of that nature, and they held them joints up in the Madison Square Garden. It changed rap forever. That's not an opinion of mine.
Right.
That's a
Yeah.
fact. So it's a fine line where people want to just debate for the sake of debating and say everything is an opinion in music when everything is not an opinion. But
Most,
there
most
are opinions, of course.
most definitely. I think part of the issue though is hip hop is so vast and regionalism comes into play. Like depending on what region you are in, you might have a totally different understanding or might not have listened to certain albums that came from the South. If you're from the West Coast, you probably haven't listened to a whole lot of Outkast or Goody Mob. If you're from the Midwest, you're gonna obviously be more familiar with Twister than someone from the East Coast.
So that was the reason why several months ago I had Crooked Eye on the platform from the West Coast because everyone know Crooked Eye is one of the West Coast lyrical
For
monsters,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
Slaughterhouse, and then he was one of the guys that was on death row after the Dr. Dre and all that situation. He was on death row with Suge Knight. So he's seen
Yeah.
everything, and Crook has been on my show twice. And the last time I said, look, man, let's do something on West Coast. Let's really talk about the West Coast because and he asked me, he said one thing I was waiting to ask you was does regional hip hop still matter? Should it still be a thing? And I said, absolutely, because that's how we travel without actually traveling. Like, for example, me coming up as a senior in high school and Outkast, Southern Pluralistic coming out, whatever. At the time, I hadn't been to Atlanta yet. But once they started talking about it within the music, I was mentally in Atlanta. So when I finally went down there, oh, that's Decatur, that's College Park, that's whatever the case may be. That's the, same
That
way what Dr. Dre did for us with the Chronicle, or what Nas did with Illmatic. He took us to Queensbridge. You know what I'm
right,
saying?
yeah,
So the region music does matter. We need 8 Ball MJG, we need Scarface, we need a chopped and screwed up everything, you know what I'm saying, down there in Houston. So yeah, it's that important. But if you say you of the culture, then you have to study the culture and you have to come outside your comfort zone. You know what I'm saying? So I only listen to Tribe Called Quest, Boom Bap. No, then you're not a hip hop historian then,
right,
because you got to go listen to Dog Pound. You got to go listen to UGK.
for
You know what
sure.
I'm saying? You have to do these things if you're saying you this certified hip hop head or not. You just like hip hop and you like what you like. That's what you listen to, but you can't appropriately engage with people who listen to every type of style of music if you only listen to one.
Most definitely. I agree with that. You make a whole lot of sense. I heard you say something earlier. You were talking about Run DMC holding up the Adidas in Madison Square Garden, and it makes me wonder, what do you consider the most pivotal moment in hip hop history and why?
Well, first thing first, the most pivotal moment is when Rappers Delight hit the radio. You know what I'm saying? Because
Okay.
that doesn't happen. Hip hop looks different. Maybe it does continue to be a fad that people thought it was gonna stay being during that time. If Rappers Delight and Sugar Hill Gang, if they didn't do what they did, you know what I'm saying? Because after that, it spawned, Funkin' 4+1 being the first group on TV. You know what I'm saying? With the guys and MC Rock, you know what I'm saying? That people don't talk about enough. So I did a little flowers post on several years ago because you have to make sure you are giving props where it's due. After that, you have your Grandma's Flash Mail Mail the Message, right? So some
Right.
people consider the greatest song in hip hop history. I do. That might not happen without Rapper's Delight. So the most pivotal part one, is the Sugar Hill Gang being what they were. Part two is Def Jam. You know what I'm saying? If Def Jam don't become Def Jam, hip hop
Right.
died right then in the early 80s. You know what I'm saying? And then after Def Jam would be Profile Records with Run DMC, because a lot of people thought because of Russell Simmons that Run DMC was on Def Jam. Run DMC wasn't on
Right. They
Def Jam.
were they were never on Def Jam.
He was
Yeah.
never on Def Jam. But so Sugar Hill Gang, Def Jam, Run DMC, and then Raising Hell. Those things have to happen.
How has the definition of hip hop culture evolved since its origins in the Bronx?
It started traveling. You know what I mean? The influence was there, obviously. Not, and I get into it with New York rap fans all the time. It's funny because they a lot of New York rap fans want a little brother you, right? They want to, and we get it. It did originate in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the culture as a whole. There was remnants of hip hop influence from jazz. You know what I'm saying? From
Sure.
the
For
Harlem
sure.
Renaissance,
Right.
from all of these things. It just kind of matriculated into what it became in New York, and then of course it ended up on the West Coast and the South, and it expanded. But the thing is, music is a direct reflection of that area where you live in. That's why it sound the way it sound. Out on the West Coast, Parliament and Funkadelic type thing was a big part of West Coast culture in parties and skating rings and everything. So when Dr. Dre started sampling a lot of that for the Chronic, that's the sound. You see what I'm saying? Now, of course, down south, you get a lot of jazz and a lot of blues and stuff, and some of the early hip hop down there. And then Organized Noise did what they did after Jermaine Dupri. Jermaine Dupri, of course, a little more poppy, but he still did what he did. Organized Noise really brought a different sound for Atlanta and for the South. You know what I'm saying? So it just, it grew, it moved, it sounded like so hip hop is a melting pot. At the same time, it still had to expand, man. So it sounded like where people live at, and it grew. And of course, the politics came into it, the business aspect came into it, the record labels became more powerful, and you start getting these terrible 360 deals. So you got the money part in it. You know what I mean? Then you get where certain people say, I'm gonna start going independent, which is another growth in hip hop, because when people start going independent and start having small independent labels, they was out of those bad 360 deals. They were able to start monetizing themselves. They could be someone like Tech Nine, for example, who started his own Strangeland thing, his own company with his
Right.
partner, selling merch. He doing his own, they doing his own concerts, his own tour
Sure.
stuff. And he is He's very
Killing.
well off, more than certain people that you would see or hear a certain name, and this person had, they was on Def Jam and they had like 8 albums. Well, they was in a deal where most of the money they was making, the label was recouping it. You know what I'm saying? Somebody like Tech Nine was eating all his money. He was putting his money together. He was selling merch. He was doing the shows, and he was getting most of all his money.
Yeah, Tech Nine is killing it. I reached out to interview Tech Nine. He didn't let me interview him. So he put me on so like I could interview Seth's crew. And this was like a bunch of years ago. And I went out to like the tour bus and like I was like,
Yeah,
man, y'all are killing it. Like, like living large, like it was really
yeah,
amazing.
and he's been doing it for a long time. But so that's the growth, man. When you think about even early 2000s when Koch Records at one point when Jim Jones and several other guys started doing their music on Koch Records, they was getting
Right.
several dollars on the album, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to a couple of cents on each album that a lot of major labels had these terrible deals, so the business part grew, and of course, sponsorships and shoes and Sprite and all of these St. Eyes, and so it became a global business, and that's what it is right now. You know what I'm saying? It's a global business.
Which lesser known artists or movements do you think deserve more recognition for shaping hip hop?
Well, I'll say early 90s, you had like the native tongues who, when you're thinking about Tribe Called Quest, De La Soul, and the Jungle Brothers, and they were spawning off with Queen Latifah, and Now by Nature was kind of part of native tongues, the brand Nubians and all of that. So they kind of influenced the whole generation after them, which ended up being your Most Defs, Talib, Pharoah Munch, and even down here in North Carolina, your little brothers and all these guys, so they don't get talked about enough. To me, I also don't think Organized Noise as a production group, you know what I'm saying, and Beats by the Pound down there with Master P and them when they ran off in like 97, 98, like 50 albums type situation. And
Right,
you
right.
don't understand, they had 20 or 30 platinum and gold albums in like a 2 year span. You know what I'm saying? So those two production teams has so much influence on hip hop that's not talked about enough. You know what I'm saying? And Raucous movement had a big had a
For sure.
had a nice impact on the underground. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many factions, man. But because we want to talk on the grand scale. The grand scale is Def Jam and Death Row and Bad Boy. You know what I'm saying? Like on the grand scale, but on a smaller scale, that underrated. I will say the Native Tongues. I will say Beats by the Pound production. Like I said, Organized Noise production, man, and man, rest in peace to Rico, man. That was a big loss for the South, man, and he was a brilliant dude, man. He is the one of the thinking heads behind all things Outkast, Goody Mob, man, and the whole movement downhill with the Dungeon Family, man. And not just him, but he was like the guy. You know what I'm saying? So there's been and now here for us, man, on a small scale for North Carolina hip hop back in the early 2000s, we had the Justice League. You know what I'm saying? So with us down here, before you had J. Cole and all them, J. Cole was a young kid, used to come up to Raleigh, Durham, and watch Little Brother perform and watch Knife Spin Records. He's this big star now and kind of a legend in the culture now with that hit, the Dreamville and all that. J. Cole is a monster in the culture, but he was a young kid going up here watching Knife and them perform, man, because the Justice League, you had Knife, you had Little Brother, you had Cesar Comanche, you had Media, you had all these guys, man, and they did some great things down here, man. That really helped push, North Carolina hip hop. That's why you have someone like Rhapsody in there who has a Grammy.
For sure.
She's from the tutelage of Knife.
Yeah, and I think that's wonderful. Like, how the South is getting this recognition now. I feel because like when I was growing up, people will always say that the South wasn't lyrical, and I always thought that that was crazy because you had CeeLo, and like I feel like CeeLo was killing
Amazing
it.
MC.
Yeah, his Perfect Imperfections, like that's a classic album. Like did you growing up in the South, like do you feel like that there was kind of like a stigma, like on rappers from the South? Did you see that?
Well, look, man, the rappers in the South can get busy. The problem was a lot of people who weren't from the South, who was just more East Coast based, and some in New York situation. And again, look, I'm real cool with a lot of platforms in New York, but they know we've gotten into the debates before, and I had to shut down some narratives before, which is fine, you know what I mean. But at the time, there were people who thought, okay, if you don't rap like Nas, if you don't rap
Right.
like Common in the Midwest, or Rakim or Carey, you don't rhyme just like them, you're not lyrical. I'm like, no, that's they rap the way where they from. I said, if you go down south, these guys are super. Andre 3000 is as good, and Big Boy, and
For
that's my
sure.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I posted the other day. Go back and listen to Art of Storytelling Part Two. Go back and listen to some of the Outkast tracks. Both of them are as lyrical as any MC you ever gonna hear. Multiple flows, everything. The greatest rap group of all time to me. You know what I'm saying? And this is coming from someone who Tribe Called Quest is my favorite rap group. Nas is my favorite rapper. But can't no rap group to me is more versatile than Outkast. Outkast can do everything. Super lyrical. T.I. is lyrical. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
CeeLo is lyrical. Good Mob is lyrical. Scarface from Texas, one of the greatest MCs of all time. Because
Yeah.
lyrics ain't
Most
always
definitely.
because lyrics is not always complexity. Lyrics is songwriting, versus how you convey a message to the audience to make people gravitate to you for generations. That's why Tupac actually is super lyrical, because his lyrics are words. That's what people understand. Lyrics are words. Pac words resonated with people. Scarface resonated with people. DMX, when he certain songs that X did, when DMX did Slipping, simple complexity, and you felt those lyrics because
Yeah,
he's
that was
lyrical.
real.
So a lot of people don't really understand what lyricism actually is. They think lyricism is what I call rapidy rap. You think it's some rapidy rap where someone throwing in 1,000 words in a bar, and that's not always effective lyricism.
Most definitely. I always gravitate toward the music. I feel like that resonates with me, that touches like your soul. Like, Eminem, like, you talk about, like on uh
Absolutely.
songs like, where like, they actually you're going through something hard in your life and that like, helps you through it. Like, and I forget, like Eminem has a bar about that, but like, it's more than just like technical skills, because I feel like there's a lot of rappers sometimes like where they do like amazing things technically, but it didn't really touch me. I don't really feel it in my soul. I
Yeah.
recognize the skill.
Right. When you can have that balance, that's when it's important. That's when it's great. And a lot of times, like you said, some people are super, super lyrical, super, super technical. But you know what? Once you taste it, it was cool, but you don't really go back for seconds all the time. You know what I'm saying? You'll have someone like a Eminem who's very vulnerable, like a Joe Button that people actually sleep on because they see him as this big music guy. I mean, this music
Yeah, the mood music mixtapes, amazing. Yeah.
amazing. People see him now as a creator. He's a business guy now. But if you go back and listen to early Joe Budden, he's one of the most vulnerable MCs of all time.
For sure. Yeah, Calm Me Down, Walk
But
With Me, like
even his last few albums, we had that Rage Against the Machine and then No Love Lost,
oh
I believe.
yeah,
I mean, you're talking about deep songs, man. But he does that, and like I said, X did that, Pac did that, Eminem did that. At some point, Nas got deeper when it around Godson when his mom passed, and you got
for
songs like
sure.
As and Heaven. I mean, he's always been cerebral, but he went way deeper, leading into Life Is Good about his divorce, and I call Life Is Good the hip hop version of Marvin Gaye's "Here My Dear" about the divorce and everything like that.
Yeah.
So, again, those kind of vulnerable MCs, man, they leave a lasting impression. And you don't have to be super lyrical on some of those songs, because Dance, what Nas did about his mom, or
Yeah.
Bye Bye Baby, or something like that, and even that Life, the Beautiful Life, they end up being on Lost Tapes too. It's not a super lyrical song, but you feel that song. He didn't go into all these deep meanings and words. He just gave you the emotion. You know what I'm saying? And so again, that balance, Scarface has that perfect balance, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like T.I. even on the low is probably one of the more, and I did a episode about him probably about 5 months ago about him being one of the most underrated MCs of all time to me. Yeah, we know he's a star. He has an amazing discography, big hits, club bangers, street bangers. But I'm talking about as an actual MC. He's a great MC.
Yeah, he has so much versatility. You could put him on something like pop, and then like he could go street, he could go like
Anything you
he,
want.
yeah, and like I feel like also is like his music has like a lot more substance than rappers in like that same category though. Like I
Yeah,
feel like where
yeah,
he's talking about like relatable issues that and he can talk about like his experience that make you actually feel like even if like you've never been in the streets, you can understand though like
yeah.
what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, man. Absolutely, absolutely.
What sparked your passion for hip hop history and how did it turn it into a career?
Well, just little background is, me growing up in the early 80s. I'm 49. My brother is 7 years older than me. You know what I'm saying? So my brother was DJing in the early 80s, man. And when I first, and of course, I remember rappers like as a kid. I remember the message, but when Run DMC's self-titled album came out, it literally changed my life. My brother was teaching me how to scratch. He was teaching me how to scratch on the Run DMC self-titled album. Now he shouldn't have taught me that because every time he left the house, I would tear his records up, try to learn and stuff like that. That made once I heard that album, and this is no joke. I listened to it every day, probably for a year, until I started getting like other albums, like Eventually Radio by AL Cool J, and stuff Egyptian Love, all the stuff like that, and whatever. And so, but it was really then when it became something like I'm gonna be a part of some way, somehow. I was one of the guys in high school and college making mixtapes for people, giving them out and stuff like that. Even when I was recording stuff on the radio, I used to put T Haynes mixtape on there and DJ T Haynes. I was doing all that little stuff in high school and in college. You know what I'm saying? People was like, man, give me one of them mixtapes, man. Like, you want them tapes you be making, man. So I was making little tapes for people, and they would take them, man, and they would get all over school, even all over campus. Like, man, Tony got all the music, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I've been like this since I was 13, 14, 15, all the way through college. I was always doing that. I was always writing poetry and writing like two poetry books. I've always been writing and stuff like that in the mode of hip hop, thinking of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So probably early 2000s, I'm on all these message boards and OK Player and all the stuff. And I was
Oh
always one
yeah.
of the popular guys when I post up, everybody commenting on. So by the time MySpace came, I started doing more little hip hop conversation like on MySpace. You know
Okay.
what I mean? By the time I got on Twitter, just met a lot of people, man, and started getting invited on a bunch of smaller podcasts at the time, and it just started growing till I started doing the Dome podcast. Well, I started with Enter the Dome writing, and I was selling merch and stuff like hats and shirts and all that, and it took off. People enjoyed it, and then I started writing more and more articles and stuff, leading me into where I am right now, man. So I mean, it's still more. I mean, it's business to a degree because there are people that still contact me behind closed doors, I'll write for them, and articles and stuff, or I'll assess their stuff, and then they pay me to do stuff with their music and stuff. So it is a business to a degree, but it's not something that I'm sitting on like that. Because I'm a professional, I'm a director of operations for an agency that does like development of disability service, foster care, everything. You know what I mean? So I actually have an actual real career
Right.
that's office based and all this stuff like that. And also hip hop on the side, music on the side is another thing that every now and then, I will make some money on, but that's really not the purpose. And honestly, everything I'm
Right.
doing,
No, yeah, I get that. Like, and I mean, I think that keeps it pure.
yeah, yeah, I love it the way everything I do regarding music, I do it whether I get a dollar or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not searching for to go viral. I'm not trying to
Right.
like for example. I get stuff from Twitter always every day trying to get me to get the blue check, right? I'm like, no, I'm not paying you for that because I get all these impressions all the time. Because a lot of times when I tweet, it get a lot of traction. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just sharing my thoughts. Twitter sending me stuff every day. I know you give me a blue check. I'm not paying for it. You know what I'm saying? Now a lot of people pay for it, which is fine, but then they trying to go viral to get a couple dollars every month. That's
Right.
not pure to me. Like you saying a bunch of crap that you're being intellectually dishonest to try to get views and try to get engagement. I get all that without all that because everything I'm saying I really believe. I don't have a Twitter like character. I don't have a
Yeah,
oh,
no, like I never see you clout chasing.
I don't know how, bro. It's not.
It's
That's
like
not.
it's real and authentic and like from a real good place, and that's what I feel like I gravitate and I enjoy your opinion. And one of the things I was looking back, it was like probably we were talking about this on Twitter, and you had mentioned that Elliot Wilson had blocked you.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts about that?
So I think so. I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna be very honest, and whoever see it is fine because I'm a very honest person. I never had nothing to hide. Uh, there's a lot of platforms on social media with a lot of ego. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying? And if you don't agree with everything they say, they'll block you, they'll unfollow you, they get in their feelings. I've had several, and I won't name some of them. There's 3 or 4 big platforms who they block me for no reason at all. It's because of what? Because I don't look up to you. I'm like kissing babies and all this stuff like that. No, I share my opinion with whoever. If you jump in my mentions, I don't care who you are. Either I agree with you or I don't agree with you. I don't treat another person any
right,
different person. We're all just people. You know what I'm saying? So I don't treat you any different. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing. Like it's competition. A lot of people, and I hate to say this, man, a lot of people be in competition with people who get a lot of, I guess, attention on platforms. You know what I mean? Like
right,
everybody know a lot of my tweets end up on Facebook, hip hop pages, on
sure,
IG. I get people inbox me all the time, screenshot of stuff, and a lot of pretty big places take my stuff. Some of them give me credit for it. Some of them won't say nothing. Somebody on there be like, "Well, you can just holler at Tony DaDome." You know what I'm saying? What? It happens all the time. So when that kind of traction happens, some people don't like that. So they feel like, oh, I'm gonna show this person, I'm a little brother, this dude, you know what I'm saying? Block him. Elliot Wilson, me and him have corresponded several times before. There's no reason for him to have blocked me. I've never said anything disrespectful to him or nothing. He started following me. You know what I'm saying? We had good dialogue, everything. You know what I'm saying? The only reason why I found out was I had just done an episode with Low from Apple Music. You know what I'm saying? And Low is on shows with him and a lot of other people. Now Low did the show with me. We cool. So I'm thinking like, you know what? Let me shoot Elliot one to see what's good. Cause we don't agree on everything, but he'll heavyweight. So I'm like, let me just see what's up. He the one start following me. We cool. I ain't thinking nothing was of it. I hit the joint. He done block me. I'm like, what is this?
What?
You,
That's
you, you know,
wild.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
man,
so, but
I consider you like one of the most important voices in hip hop, and I
I
love your
appreciate
takes.
it, man.
I like you know what I mean. It makes me like thinking, like you put me on to certain stuff that I wasn't checking for. What's the
I'll say this though. Outside of some people, I think Doggy Diamond got me blocked too. Never had no bad. I think he does too. Who else? I don't know. A few of those guys. It's kind of funny, but I'll say this: the fact that when you're authentic, the right people will rock with you. You know what I mean? Chuck D rock with me. That's good enough for me, brother. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
He been rocking with me for years. We communicate. You know what I'm saying? Back in like December, my phone notifications going off. My profile pictures from Chuck D. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So he drew that for me and tagged me in it, and it went crazy on there. I shared it with my family. I thought that was real cool because somebody who I looked up to in high school.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. I have the utmost respect for Chuck D.
right.
I've exchanged like a couple tweets with him, and stuff like.
He a
But
good dude, man.
yeah, yeah, what I mean, just like his legacy in hip hop, and just
Right.
like is
And he said a lot of positive things about me on Twitter and I've retweeted them for people to see because I thought it was real dope. You know what I'm saying? So he said a lot of positive about me all the way up to right now. I just had correspondence with him the other day. So I mean, that's important to me in terms of like the respect from somebody like that. You know what I'm
for
saying? A
sure.
lot of other people inbox me. Some of them are people who in the industry that they don't say nothing in front of people, but I get inbox from some pretty big people, and they recognize
Yeah,
value
yeah.
in
I
what they
mean, I would
say.
say like a lot of real ones, man. Like I see on your platform, like these aren't people who are easy to get. Like, RA the Rugged Man isn't doing interviews with everybody. It's
Yeah, and I do want to give a shout out too, as far as like Rob Markman has been one of those
yeah,
hip hop journalists who has done a lot in the music
for
industry
sure.
in general. He's been on the Dome podcast twice. You know what I'm saying? And I personally know him now, and he's a real solid dude and everything like that. And again, we got that kind of relationship. Crook is a real cool dude. You know what I'm saying? I also, man, want to also shout out too, man. Like last year, Dante Ross is one of the biggest A&Rs of the '90s. You know what I'm saying? And, I had Dante on the Dome podcast before too. You know what I'm saying? And Dante was very cool. I haven't talked to him in a while, but man, he was real solid. You know what I'm saying? And it's other people who I've talked to and others that eventually I will be on the show, and I've talked to them behind closed doors. But I let stuff happen authentically, man. Everything's authentic with me. You know what I'm saying? I don't do industry politics. I
Yeah.
don't I don't deal with that. I've
Yeah.
had some people hit me in the DM with industry politics. I don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like if we go on a relationship, you know what I'm saying, and you come on the show, that's cool. I got some more people going to be coming at some point in the future, but I'm never going to do the politics. Man. I just don't want to do that's not my thing. You know what I'm
Man,
saying?
and I've written for sites before, and I know like some of the shady things that kind of go on behind the scenes. I wrote for Hip Hop My Way, and Saigon like gave me the opportunity. I appreciate
Right.
him, but there's some things like they go on like when I actually was in it. They like I don't.
I don't do any of it. I've made it very clear, so a lot of people don't even bring that BS to me, because I've made that pretty clear. I personally, I'm too old for that stuff. I'm not dealing with it. If you want to rock with me, rock with me. If you don't, you don't. Just like we talking right now. We ain't gonna jump to no hoops. Hit me up, yo. You wanna
Yeah,
rap? We'll do it. If I ain't have time to do it for some other kind of reason, I'm like, hey, let's shoot for a time, man. We'll get together at some point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I don't play games with people. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. You know
man,
what I'm saying?
I appreciate you. Like
Well, but people don't all people are not like that in this space, man.
no, yeah, for
It's a lot
sure.
of
Like
games, man. It's a lot
yeah,
of games.
like I've had a
Man,
lot of people in hip hop, like, say they would do interviews. I've actually, like, sent a few people, like, like money and like they
yeah.
just took my money, never did the interview.
Oh
And like,
man, that's just
it was like, like really like, like big artists, like, you would know their name, like, and stuff. And like, you would
right.
think they're not gonna take
Look, bro, I know so many stories about how this game go because I do have some friends in the industry. Some people know some of my
Yeah.
friends in the industry and stuff. So I've been in the studio with certain people and all that stuff like that. It is what it is. It don't really move me like that. You know what I'm saying? But I hear the stories because one of my friends is really in the biz for real. And I've heard every kind of thing you could think of. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I'm just not in that kind of space. And if I keep going the rate I'm going, and more people are going to be involved with the dome and the blow. I still operate the same way I operate when I had 100 followers. Nothing has
Yeah,
ever
yeah.
changed.
I love that, man. What trends in today in hip hop excites you the most, and which ones concern you?
You know what? I'm gonna tell you what's funny. I'm gonna tell you what concerns me first. Subject matter concerns me now, and I guess it's because I'm getting older. So what's funny is, I kind of had some people up in arms the other week when Benny the Butcher had done a tweet, I guess, about the coke rap, the best coke rap, and just coke rap in general. I guess some people not. I forgot the way he explained it, but my
Yeah, he
response,
was talking about like if the age you were born, like you couldn't have possibly like
yeah,
picked
all
up
of
this
that
stuff. Yeah,
stuff. It was about the age, Then of course it's coke versus crack, and if you're a certain age, you wasn't a part of a certain time period in that lifestyle. You know what I'm saying? And my whole thing was, and I wasn't talking to him, but I was responding to somebody who had retweeted that. I said, to be honest, to me, be good to see some of the coke rap disappear and die. You know what I'm saying? And what I meant by that is, and I explained it too, was yeah, the community is gonna have certain things, certain challenges. So some of the music will never change. Some of the subject matter will not change. But if you're an MC and you say you're this nice MC, and every other song is about how much coke you done shipped with Pablo Escobar, at some point it's boring. And you know what I'm saying? And it's also leading give the kids the real story. Okay, if you sold dope, let them know. A lot of your homies got killed, and you almost got killed, and you were scared to damn die, and you were scared to do life in prison, and you changed your life, and you really dug into your rapping. Stop talking like you glorified it. You know what I'm saying? That's my problem because if you look back in the day, and I talked about this, Ice-T, when he was doing his stories, he would give you the realness and tell you at the end of the story what happened to that person. And for you not to be like that. You know what I'm saying? MC8 would do that song. Spice One would do that song. Scarface would do that song. You know what I'm saying? Instead of people, and these are a lot of the West Coast guys, storytellers. Some of the New York storytellers, they big up, what I'm saying, a lot of the 70s, Frank Lucas and all these guys, they big them up. They made a lot of the New York guys made the drug dealers from their communities famous. They made Pappy Mason and all. Not even Nas even
For
did it
sure.
too. But they made Pappy Mason famous. They made all those other guys in New York. So the Supreme Team in Queens, all these guys right there. Ja Rule people. What's your boy name? Supreme. All
Right.
these guys. You know what I'm saying? Black Just. All we know who these guys are. E Money Bags. You know what I'm saying? We know these guys from hip hop. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of these guys either dead or doing life in jail. So if you're gonna
For
tell
sure.
these stories, really tell it. And some of them don't really tell it the right way, man. So, that is a concern. The good part is in hip hop is because a lot of people are independent now, you have so many creative young MCs who can post their music on YouTube, can post their music on Twitter. And I'm gonna tell you, man, I have met, and I wish I had the names of a lot of these guys right now. I'm gonna talk about them in the next few days. So many people have sent me music, and I will repost it on my page. And I've had a lot of young guys say, "Hey, man, I just want to ask you, man, like, what would it charge me just to push my music, or either just put it on your page? Dog, just send me the dope music, man. I'll post it, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's the way I rock out. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of these guys are so talented. I'm glad they're able to do music. I wish they could get pushed even more. And if I ever keep growing this platform, I really want to push more guys, man, out there who got some great subject matter, really talented, but they are being overshadowed by some of these guys that's got these big names with this garbage ass music. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I do see like, there are so many talented music
Talented.
artists. And like, I'm really impressed, man. Tony, I really appreciate you taking the time. This was a breath of fresh air. I
Yeah.
feel like, like it was great, like, what I mean, for you to come on. You're welcome back anytime. What advice would you give to aspiring hip hop historians or podcasters?
I'm gonna tell you, thanks for asking me that because today I was in a conversation on Twitter and people been seeing it. And I said, if you call yourself a hip hop head, a hip hop historian, or whatever you engulfed in the culture, do the knowledge, do the research. Don't just type on emotions because everything is not just opinion. I had to tell a few dudes today about several different things that wasn't opinion based. You know what I'm saying? One of them was, for example, was revolving around an MC who, a university is going to do some studies on him. And then the guy's like, oh man, I can't believe they're doing studies on this guy. Well, other universities already talked about this guy already. So it had nothing to do with the Drake battle. You feel me now?
Yeah,
Like, no, they talked about it was about Kendrick, like Temple University is gonna do some study on him or something like that. It's one of these guys, or these guys like, oh man, this wouldn't happen without the battle. And we like, no, other universities have talked about Kendrick and to Pimp a Butterfly and him winning the Pulitzer Prize, but damn, that's already been studied in some universities already. You know, MCs being studied is nothing new. Tupac been studied for 20 years in various universities all over the country.
right.
You know what I'm saying? These are facts. These ain't my opinions. So that's why my advice to people is if you call yourself something, do the knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Do the research before you start typing opinion-based stuff that actually has facts to it that you blurring the lines. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't I would never bring up a subject without doing a I don't just tweet the tweet. There's research behind stuff I know is because I research. I write because I research.
For sure.
You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to start back sharing some of my articles and stuff like that because this ain't just started yesterday. I didn't just start doing this, and I would tell people if you're new, study people who've been around a long time. Take the good and the bad from any kind of platform, man. Know what to do, know what not to do. You know what I'm saying? That's the good thing about being new sometimes. You can say, you know what? Well, I saw how these guys did. I'm gonna take a little piece of that. I'm gonna take a little piece of that. I'm not gonna do that right there. You know what I'm saying? Because that's how you don't want to alienate people and stuff like that. So, you gotta be real conscious about the information that you share, man. But be truthful too. Be honest, stand your ground. You know what I'm saying? Because when you saying a bunch of nonsense, people are going to visit be able to call you out. Now, some people are going to call you out because they want to be an antagonist. You know what I'm saying? I have people that try to be antagonists all the time because they just want to try to get something out of me or take something I say so they can push it and get a bunch of views. You know what I'm saying? So I understand some, so I ignore a lot of them a lot of times, but sometimes I will say some things to put them in their place.